what's up? Welcome back to another video. Today we're doing a little product showcase slash install of Lmutv's new rear bulkhead reinforcement with dog bones. We're going to show you how to install this, why you may want this, and how it's going to reinforce the back of the chassis on the Can-Am X3. So we're going to feature the rear bulkhead kit, which comes with this plate here that attaches to the chassis, as well as 3 dog bones for the upper, center, and lower section, and they're going to be on the back side of the chassis. And we're gonna also show you guys the rear radius rod plate that's gonna go in conjunction with this bulkhead kit. So how these marry each other here is there's gonna have some studs there with some nuts, and they're gonna go something like that, but on the car. So it's gonna look real good for one. I think it's a nice design, but for two, it's gonna reinforce a whole lot on the chassis. One issue that we've seen a lot, besides the fact that the chassis plate is extremely small, not small, but thin, is the bracing that Can-Am gives you. So I kind of already had this off, but I want to show you guys the radius rods are, in this example, sandwiched by the radius rod plate and the chassis. Can-Am had to make some changes. Not sure what year or if they just added it since the beginning of time when the Can-Am X3 was made, but they had this brace here that is supposed to help reinforce the you know, the movement of these bolts. So what happens is you're using your machine. This radius rod is doing this all the time, and I'm talking about all 6 of them. They're all trying to push in and out, and they're constantly doing that depending on obviously the terrain you're going through and how hard you're going through it. A lot of guys want to treat their machines like they're mini trophy trucks. And that's fine, but you have to make some reinforcements to do that. So a lot of you guys will see this plate here, and I'll pull her off. A lot of guys will see this plate on their machines have a slight bend in it when it's installed, and that's because the top rods have pushed inwards and has actually bent it on the back side of the radius rod, or the front side I should say. And that's because the movement of these bolts, they're kind of not in there very tight. The tolerance isn't perfect, and it allows play back and forth. Now, if you don't address this, what will happen is these holes will hollow out, wallow out, and get worse over time. And the same thing with the radius rod plate. You can see the holes. Look at how much gap I have in the radius rod plate for movement. And what happens is, like I said, you're using your machine, and all of a sudden the alignment will be off, and that's because the studs have moved and the radius rods themselves have moved and changed your alignment. So if you have alignment issues in the rear, a lot of times it is because everything has shifted. Now, to prevent that, we got aftermarket parts with a lot tighter tolerances. You can see here, and I'm trying to move this, way tighter tolerances, and that's not going to happen. And this is going to go in here to make this a lot tougher. Now, I'm doing aftermarket radius rods on this machine. We've shown that in the past. We'll leave a link down below for that video. Lmutv Radius Rods again. By the way, if you're installing this, I recommend the radius rods from Lmutv to avoid any product you know, not working together. So if you get another brand's radius rods, who knows, there may be the chance that they won't work with this radius rod and reinforcement. So normally a lot of guys, including myself and many others, only install the radius rod plate, and that's great. This is going to be a lot stronger than the piece of paper that they give you, but the thing is, you're tying the bolts together on the back side of it, but on the front side of it, the chassis still has room to go back and forth, and that is an issue. So a lot of times, even with this installed, you will still see this bend, and that's because the back side of the bolts are still moving in and out. So to address that, Lmutv came out with this rear bulkhead kit. There are many different products out on the market, like dog bones is the most common one that you will see. I currently have it on my machine, but I may be switching to this very soon. And those are great. The biggest problem with those type of dog bones, and again, that company and those products are great products, and I would never not recommend them. But what I would say is better about these is the fact that this is going to be on the back side of the chassis, and now you don't have to worry about trying to install everything at once, including the plate. A lot of you guys know, if you watched that previous video where we did the radius rods, trying to align all the radius rods and these bolts all at the same time while trying to install this plate can be a real pain in the butt.
You're a pain in my ass, Keller.
So, what Lmutv is doing, and this is an idea that we've seen on other brands. Again, those are great. This one I think is a more complete kit. It's gonna offer some welded nuts. These dog bones are gonna be in the backside of the chassis, and you can now install one radius rod at a time and never have to worry about fighting all 6 of them at once. You only have to do one at a time, install, and obviously, you know, you complete your goal of installing your radius rods. Or if you had to remove them to, say, replace an axle or a trailing arm that bent, whatever. Which, well, these won't bend, these are HDR. But anyways, so this is a great idea. I personally really like it. These nice grade A hardware. Actually, they're 10.9, so even better, grade 10. And this all comes in the kit. So you get the plate, you get 3 of these dog bones. They're gonna go on the back side of the chassis. You get 6 of these grade 10 bolts and a couple of other hardware to attach the radius rod plate to this plate, and also to attach the dog bones to the chassis. So we're gonna go ahead and show you guys how to install this. Lmutv does have some written instructions with some nice pictures on their website. I'll leave a link to that. But I'm gonna show you guys how I'm gonna do it, because I feel like I have a you know, good way of how this can turn out without having to do it the way they did it. So on their instructions, they tell you to cut the bolts as much as you can and get the most length out of it you can, and you're gonna use those to align everything. Now I don't really care to do it that way. I think the best way to do it is actually install this plate and then just drill the holes out, and that should align with your backing plate. So that's what we're gonna do now. We're gonna first install this backing plate onto the bulkhead. We're gonna pull all the bolts forward, or backwards I mean. And in fact, I might go ahead and just install the nuts and then tighten this down. And once that's tightened down, I can go ahead and drill my holes. So let's do that. I'm happy with that. Now I can go ahead and drill my holes. I believe we're gonna be doing 5/16. Now again, I skimmed over the instructions and didn't look completely. Maybe I'll just leave a little note for you guys if it is different, but I believe it's 5/16. So 5/16 does appear to be the hole for the center, and actually the bottom and the top as well. But the difference is you could drill your hole for the 5/16 here, but for the bottom ones, upper and lower, because these holes here are not 5/16, you're gonna wanna go ahead and drill them with a 1/4 inch bit, as centered as possible. Keep an eye in there. So on the back side there, you wanna do it as centered as possible. And then once we do the holes, upper, lower, center, you wanna take this plate off and then finish drilling them out to 5/16. And I think I'm gonna do that now. One thing to know. Now we can go ahead and take the bolt off. Now we're gonna finish drilling it out with a 5/16 bit. All right, with those all drilled out, now you go ahead and cut off your old studs. The dreaded studs that no one likes, that pretty much suck. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut these off. Once you cut those off, you should be able to pull these out now. So once you remove the old studs, by the way, a magnet is going to be your best friend, one of those movable magnets, and the closer you cut it to the back plate, the better. So now that that's done, you're going to want to install the dog bones. We're going to put the top one first because it's the easiest one. It does have an orientation. Obviously, the way you drill your holes, the drill holes in the center are going to be a little bit higher than the center line, and that's how that's going to go. So we're going to put the what is it, 12mm hardware through and kind of screw it on, and then we'll put the Allens in the middle. Once you got the one bolt on there, you go ahead and fish the other one, and I can see it there. I'm gonna use my plate with a bolt and line that up. So yes, I know this isn't the easiest install. There is some cutting involved, but it's gonna be the most complete install, I think, out of all the options out there. One thing to note, guys, like I said earlier, this is probably only gonna be compatible with the Lmutv Radius Rod Plate, as well as probably most rear bumpers with built-in, you know, radius attachment. You're probably not gonna be able to use those. This is gonna be strictly for the Radius Rod Plate that Lmutv makes, so keep that in mind. So now that that's there, these should line up now with the dog bones. We'll see if I'm lying or not. I'll put those on, and we'll pretty much be doing the same thing to all of them now and get them all in position.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
All right, so we got everything installed. I will say it was pretty difficult to get these Allens on. First I started them by hand, and then I finished them off with an Allen key, because you can't really get a one of these guys in there with a ratchet. So I did get them all on now. Now I could loosen them all up or take them all off, install the pull plate. There are some nuts that go on those studs right there, and we'll put those on there loosely. We won't finally tighten them until we have the radius rods in place. Actually, I'm not too sure. We'll figure it out as we go. This guy is gonna go something like that. And that looks freaking epic. You guys can see that. Absolutely epic! So that looks good. So now this thing is gonna be reinforced on the back side of the chassis, on the front side of the chassis, and behind and in front of the radius rod itself. So everything's nice and tight when it comes to tolerances, and pretty much you can install one of these one at a time, like that, which is pretty cool. Let me see if that works before I'm live. So I'm gonna go ahead and install these nuts from the back side, and then probably kind of leave it loose until I'm ready with the radius rods. All right guys, there it is. I'm all finished up. So this is an involved install. I want to show you guys step by step, because I know a lot of you guys are gonna have some issues trying to install this on your own if you never installed anything like this before. I got some other work to do to this machine, but that's gonna be it for this video. Final thoughts: is this worth it? Personally, I think it is, if you drive like a freaking maniac. For the most part, most of you guys are gonna get away with just the radius rods and the plate, and you'll be just fine. If you want that extra reinforcement, if you want that extra protection to your frame at the very rear here, then it is worth it. For the price, they give you a lot of good items, including all the hardware, this mounting plate, and the rear dog bones. Like I said, the ease of being able to remove one radius rod at a time in order to service you know, one side, say such as an axle or hub, I think that's pretty convenient. So you can pull one bolt out, remove that, pull the other bolt out, and obviously when you do that, you probably want to loosen them, but you don't have to completely take them out and touch the other side. You can only do one side on its own, versus before you had those studs and you would have to take off this plate, and then everything would be out of alignment, and putting the plate back on was a pain in the butt. So like I said, if you're interested in this, check it out in the links down below. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Stay dirty.